when despair for the world grows in me, and I wake in the night at the least sound, in fear of what my life and my children's lives may be, I go and lie down where the wood drake rests, in his beauty on the water, and the great heron feeds. I come into the peace of wild things, who do not tax their lives with forethought of grief. I come into the presence of still water, and I feel above me the day-blind stars waiting with their light. For a time, I rest in the grace of the world and am free. Good morning to you all, and welcome to our service here on April 11th at First Parish Church in Weston. I am Sarah Nappoline, the Assistant Minister for Families and Community Outreach here at First Parish. We're delighted that you have tuned in to join us virtually, and we continue to miss the blessing of being gathered together in person to worship, to give thanks, and to come away renewed. Our service participants this morning include Jeff Weeding, our organist, Bill Sano, our music director, Rose Hegele, our soprano soloist and song leader, Christopher Humbert, our baritone soloist, Andy and Beanie Marvel, who will light our chalice this morning, and the Reverend Jeff Barz-Snell, the minister here at First Parish. Our service is produced and edited by Laurel Culo and Jacob Barz-Snell. And now we invite you to rise up wherever you find yourself and join with us in singing or humming a few verses of We Cannot Own the Sunlit Sky. The lyrics can be found in the order of service that was emailed out to many of you and is on the online worship page at our website.
Thank you, Rose. We'd now like to welcome Andy and Beanie Marvel to light our chalice on this day.
In the mystery of life about us, there is light and possibility. It gives us a place to be, to grow, to rejoice together. It opens the pathways to love and compassion. In this place of sacred connection, there is both freedom and inspiration. As we light this chalice, may the light we kindle here go before us and among us, even as we gather together at a distance. May this light be strong in hope, wide in goodwill, inviting the warmer days to come. Happy spring.
At the far end of town, where the grickle grass grows, and the wind smells slow and sour when it blows, and no birds ever sing excepting old crows, is the street of the lifted Lorax. What was the Lorax, and why was it there? The old Onceler still lives there. Ask him, he knows. Now I'll tell you, he says, how the Lorax got lifted and taken away. It all started way back, such a long, long time back. Way back in the days when the grass was still green, and the pond was still wet, and the clouds were still clean, I came to this glorious place, and I first saw the trees, the truffula trees. The bright-colored tufts of the truffula trees, mile after mile in the fresh morning breeze. I felt a great leaping of joy in my heart. I knew just what I'd do. I unloaded my cart. In no time at all, I had built a small shop. Then I chopped down a truffula tree with one chop. And with great skill and great speed, I took the soft tuft and I knitted a thneed. The instant I'd finished, I heard a gazump. I looked. I saw something pop out of the stump of the tree I'd chopped down. It was sort of a man. He was shortish and oldish and brownish and mossy, and he spoke with a voice that was sharpish and bossy. "Mister," he said with a sawdusty sneeze, "I am the Lorax. I speak for the trees. I speak for the trees have no tongues. And I'm asking you, sir, at the top of my lungs." He was very upset as he shouted and puffed, "What's that thing you've made out of my truffula tuft?" "Look, Lorax," I said, "there's no cause for alarm. I chopped just one tree. I am doing no harm. I'm being quite useful. This thing is a thneed. A thneed is a fine something that all people need. It's a shirt, it's a hat, but it has other uses. Yes, far beyond that. You can use it for carpets, for sheets, or even covers for bicycle seats." The Lorax said, "Sir, you are crazy with greed. There is no one on earth who would buy that fool thneed." But the very next minute I proved he was wrong, for just at that minute a chap came along, and he thought that the thneed I had knitted was great. He happily bought it for $3.98. I laughed at the Lorax. "You poor stupid guy. You never can tell what some people will buy." "I repeat," cried the Lorax, "I speak for the trees." "I'm busy," I told him. "Shut up, if you please."
Our reading for this day comes from the Hebrew Bible, from the book of Psalms. Here now excerpts from Psalm 104. O Lord my God, you are very great. You are clothed with honor and majesty. Wrapped in light as with a garment, you stretch out the heavens like a tent. You set the beams of your chambers on the waters. You make the clouds your chariot. You ride on the wings of the wind. You make the winds your messengers, fire and flame your ministers. You set the earth on its foundation so that it shall never be shaken. From your lofty abode you water the mountains. The earth is satisfied with the fruit of your work. The trees of the Lord are watered abundantly, the cedars of Lebanon that he planted. In them the birds build their nests. The stork has its home in the fir trees. The high mountains are for the wild goats. The rocks are a refuge for the conies. O Lord, how manifold are your works! In wisdom you have made them all. The earth is full of your creatures. Yonder is the sea, great and wide. Creeping things innumerable are there, living things both great and small. These all look to you to give them their food in due season. When you give to them, they gather it up. When you open your hand, they are filled with good things. When you hide your face, they are dismayed. When you take away their breath, they die and return to their dust. When you send forth your spirit, they are created, and you renew the face of the ground. May the glory of the Lord endure forever. May the Lord rejoice in his works. Who looks on the earth and it trembles? Who touches the mountains and they smoke? I will sing to the Lord as long as I live. I will sing praise to my God while I have this being. Here ends the reading.
Then I called all my brothers and cousins and aunts, and I said, "Listen here. Here's a wonderful chance for the whole Wensler family to get mighty rich." And in no time at all, in the factory I built, the whole Wensler family was working full tilt. We were all knitting thneeds, just as busy as bees, to the sound of the chopping of truffula trees. Then how my business did grow! Now chopping one tree at a time was too slow. So quickly I invented my super axe hacker, which whacked off 4 truffula trees at one smacker. We were making thneeds 4 times as fast as before. And that Lorax, he didn't show up anymore. But the next week, he knocked on my new office door. He snapped. "I'm the Lorax who speaks for the trees which you seem to be chopping as fast as you please. But I'm also in charge of the brown barbaloots, who happily lived eating truffula fruits. Now, thanks to your hacking my trees to the ground, there's not enough truffula fruit to go round." I meant no harm, I most truly did not, but I had to grow bigger, so bigger I got. I biggered my factory, I biggered my roads, I went right on biggering, selling more thneeds, and I biggered my money, which everyone needs. Then again he came back. I was fixing some pipes when that old nuisance Lorax came back with more gripes. "I am the Lorax," he coughed and he sniffed. "Wensler," he cried with a crufulous croak, "Wensler, you're making such smogulous smoke. My poor swami swans, why they can't sing a note. No one can sing who has smog in his throat. You're glumping the pond where the humming fish hummed. No more can they hum, for their gills are all gummed." And then I got mad. I got terribly mad. I yelled at the Lorax, "Now listen here, Dad. All you do is yap yap and say bad, 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 bad. Well, I have my rights, sir, and I'm telling you, I intend to go on doing just what I do. And for your information, you Lorax, I'm figuring on biggering and biggering and biggering, turning more truffula trees into thneeds, which everyone needs." And at that very moment we heard a loud whack. From outside in the fields came a sickening smack of an axe on a tree. Then we heard the tree fall, the very last truffula tree of them all. No more trees, no more thneeds, no more work to be done. So in no time my uncles and aunts every one all waved me goodbye. Now all that was left beneath the bad-smelling sky was my big empty factory, the Lorax, and I. The Lorax said nothing, just gave me a glance, just a very, very sad backward glance, as he lifted himself by the seat of his pants. And I'll never forget the grim look on his face when he hoisted himself and took leave of this place through a hole in the smog without leaving a trace. And all that the Lorax left here in this mess was a small pile of rocks with one word, unless. Whatever that meant, well, I just couldn't guess.
the Lorax is one who speaks for the trees, then who shall you speak for in times such as these? What makes your heart go thumpity-thump? Nature has magic unbounded to share. Is it the stars up above, or deep waters below, or the changing of seasons from sunshine to snow? So what is the thing that makes you stand up and shout, "Listen here, world, that's what I'm all about"? Because just like the Lorax, we must make it known. We must feel it way deep down in our bones. And we must believe with all of our heart that we can make a difference if only we start. Today, I speak to you from the ancestral and unceded lands of the Massachusetts and Pawtucket people. My husband and I live on the ancestral lands of the Wampanoag, Massachusetts people. And I grew up in the Muscataquid Valley, the Indian name for grassy plain. This is the land that we come from and we are on now. And more specifically, I grew up in a grove of oak trees. Oaks have been considered sacred in many cultures and feature prominently in ancient Roman, Greek, and Nordic mythology. They are some of the tallest and strongest trees and were considered sacred to great pantheon leaders such as Zeus, Jupiter, Dagda, and Thor. For me, the greatest spiritual connection to oak trees and oak groves is that of the Celtic Druids. The Druids historically worshipped and performed rites in oak groves, and many modern Druid circles continue that practice today. Druid tradition centers around the magic and mysticism of the natural world, and some traditions specifically worship the oak tree itself. The word Druid may even be connected to the Celtic word meaning knower of the oak tree. The encircling trees create a sacred space, but in many ways were, to Celtic people, worthy of worship themselves. My last name by marriage is Napolene, but my maiden name is Kelleher, a very anglicized version of the Irish surname O'Kylakar. It's only too appropriate that I grew up in the shelter of an oak grove. I discovered the power of earth-centered traditions around the time I completed my church coming-of-age program, which is similar to First Parish's covenanting year. I wouldn't credit my affinity to pagan and Wiccan spirituality entirely to the natural magic of growing up in an oak grove, but I wouldn't discount it either. These spiritual traditions celebrated and empowered women and honored femininity and balance with masculinity. They incorporated rituals and elements of the world, earth, air, fire, and water. And they follow the rhythm of the natural world with the wheel of the year, the annual cycle of seasonal holidays and sacred festivals that's observed by those who follow pagan and earth-centered spirituality. Today, my spirituality is still earth-centered, if not pagan. It's centered around the earth because I am centered around the earth. Because my very existence is drawn from, relies upon, and is forever connected to the earth. If my existence is that inextricably intertwined with nature, then it makes sense that my spirituality, my way of understanding and making meaning of the world, would be inextricably intertwined with nature too. There's a famous and a beautiful quotation that says, "The earth does not belong to us. We belong to the earth." All things are connected like the blood which unites one family. Mankind did not weave the web of life. We are but one strand within it. Whatever we do to the web, we do to ourselves. This is typically attributed to a letter written by Chief Seattle to President Franklin Pierce. But however, it was in fact written in the 1970s by screenwriter Ted Perry for a documentary film about ecology. There unfortunately is no record of the exact nature of Chief Seattle's speeches and correspondence, but the chief of the Suquamish and Duwamish people was a great leader who no doubt held an integrated ecological belief system, and we honor his actual memory. We are all connected, strands woven together as part of the web of life. Whatever we do to the web, we do to ourselves. We live now in a capitalist, consumerist society. We're socially driven to earn, to accumulate, to spend, to buy, to hoard, to negotiate. We live in a transactional world. If I do X or pay you Y, you'll give me Z. If you've given me A, then I owe you B. We're living our lives focused on the bottom line until, gazump, an undefinable, indomitable, shortish, oldish, sharpish creature or experience or moment interrupts our lives and bossily demands an explanation. Dr. Seuss's story of the Onceler's encounter with the eponymous Lorax holds incredible wisdom and captures the minds, hearts, and imaginations of generations, and has since it was published in 1971. Indeed, many of the books by Dr. Seuss, whose real name is Theodore Seuss Geisel, hold excellent lessons and wisdom for all ages, as we are exploring today. However, it bears mentioning that this beloved author comes with his fair share of recent controversy. Just last month, the Seuss estate announced that it would stop selling and producing 6 of his books after concluding that the egregious racial and ethnic stereotypes in the works are hurtful and wrong. Now, these books are not at the top of the bestseller list. They include his first children's book, And to Think That I Saw It on Mulberry Street, and a few of his other less popular titles. And when I say less popular, let me briefly put this in context. In 2020, more than 338,000 copies of Green Eggs and Ham were sold across the United States. Oh, the Places You'll Go, which is always popular as a high school graduation gift, it sold more than 513,000 copies. In comparison, And to Think That I Saw It on Mulberry Street sold 5,000 copies. Some of the other titles that were discontinued haven't been sold in years. But the fact that the most egregious racism in these books isn't found in our favorite titles doesn't mean that we can just let it go. It is perfectly fine for an estate to decide that they no longer want to circulate stories with harmful caricatures or artwork, but that does not erase the reality that this artwork was created to begin with, or the perspective of the person who created it. It also does not erase the power of his other work, such as the story of the Lorax. It's our task to hold these truths, these disparate truths simultaneously, that an artist can be flawed and hold disturbing prejudices, but also can share brilliant wisdom and truth. Danielle Slaughter is a wife, mother, and independent scholar. She shares her perspective as a Black woman balancing these roles on her blog, Mamademics. When asked about Dr. Seuss, she challenged the knee-jerk reaction to protesting and discarding his work. She acknowledges his racism, but she says, he grew up is, and a lesson of what happens when you realize you were wrong and work to do better. Seuss arguably spent the rest of his career writing children's books that teach about the importance of inclusion and acceptance of others and yourself. She says, trashing your collection of Seuss books is easier than doing the real work. It's easier to erase the books from your children's bookshelves than to sit them down and talk about Seuss's past. Instead of asking the library to remove Seuss Day and remove the books, ask them to spend some time talking about the mistakes that Dr. Seuss made and how he used the remainder of his career to focus on writing books full of important and powerful lessons. How, she asks, how will our children learn from our past if we continue to whitewash it in an effort to seem perfect? As Dr. Seuss's work was a form of restorative justice, atoning for the sins of his early career, the Onceler's story contains the seeds of justice for his own transgressions. It's important to note the Lorax from our very abridged story doesn't quite come out of nowhere. He comes directly out of the stump of the first truffula tree that the Onceler chopped down. Think about it. There's quite a lot of power in that metaphor. The truffula tree was something the Onceler appreciated in nature, something he really connected with, something that he shared with others, and then he chopped it down to create something that he could sell. From the void of emptiness, from the absence of inspiration and the life that once was, came a voice, came an advocate. The Lorax and his fierce, persnickety challenge to the once there was, in the world of Dr. Seuss, a natural consequence to the indiscriminate consumption of nature. I wonder if the Lorax existed separate from that specific action. Maybe he was part of the Onceler's superego, his conscience, his inner voice telling him that he was headed down the wrong path. I wonder if the Lorax would have ever appeared if the Onceler simply appreciated and enjoyed the truffula trees instead of cutting one down. I even wonder if the Lorax would have intervened or appeared if the Onceler cut down a tree only after he'd been there a while, getting to know the land and appreciate the flora, the fauna, and the animal life around him, if he'd built a relationship with the sacred space. The quote from Wendell Berry on the front of our order of service says, "Stay away from anything that obscures the place it is in. There are no unsacred places. There are only sacred places and desecrated places." This is from a poem titled How to Be a Poet, to remind myself. In other parts of this piece, Wendell Berry says, one needs to make a place to sit down. Sit down. Be quiet. You must depend on patience, for patience joins time to eternity. Breathe, he says, with unconditional breath, the unconditioned air. Communicate slowly. Live a three-dimensioned life. The Onceler created a two-dimensional life marked by the rush of production, consumption, and accumulation, frenzy, impatience. There's no poetry in his work, no gratitude, no respect for the sacred space that he had colonized. And there is most certainly a part of the Onceler who knows that. At the very start of the story, there's this line that struck me so clearly. He says, "All my life I've been searching for trees such as these. All my life I've been searching." Haven't we all been searching for meaning and connection with the divine all our lives, in every way? Haven't we all found something powerful and amazing in the world that we wanted to bottle up and keep forever, even if we knew we couldn't? But we cannot own the sunlit sky, the moon, the wildflowers growing. Instead, maybe we can learn just to be present to sacred space. The most famous line from the Lorax is, "Unless." We ended part 2 of our story with the Onceler sitting in the ruins of his factories and destruction with a pile of rocks with one word, "unless." And the Onceler says, "Whatever that meant, well, I just couldn't guess." But now, retelling the story of his past, the Onceler comes to a realization. That was long, long ago, but each day since that day, I've sat here and worried away. Through the years, while my buildings have fallen apart, I've worried about it with all of my heart. But now, says the Onceler, now that you're here, the word of the Lorax seems perfectly clear. Unless someone like you cares a whole awful lot, nothing is going to get better. It's not. So, catch! Calls the Onceler. He lets something fall. It's a truffula seed. It's the last one of all. You're in charge of the last of the truffula seeds, and truffula trees are what everyone needs. Plant a new truffula. Treat it with care. Give it clean water and feed it fresh air. Grow a forest. Protect it from axes that hack. Then, the Lorax and all of his friends may come back. Unless someone like you cares a whole awful lot, nothing is going to get better. It's not. We must care a whole awful lot, as he says, but I would argue that in reality, we have to do much better than care. We have to recognize that we are in charge. that we are stewards of a sacred legacy, that harm to the web of all creation is harm to ourselves, to our loved ones, and harm to countless future generations. That there is a Lorax within us that will spring up and speak for the trees if we do not listen to our own conscience and our own connection to the sacred spaces of the natural world. So care, my friends. Care a whole awful lot. But caring can never be where you stop. Speak up, speak out, declare your allegiance. Don't let damage be done without airing a grievance. It is our job to care for the world that we share. It is our job to seek out justice that's fair. Listen, my friends, to the earth and the trees. We're in charge of our futures, so take great care, if you please. Amen, and may it be so. I invite you to join me in the spirit of prayer. Spirit of life and love, God of many names and no names at all, but who knows each of us as beloved, we bring our hearts to you. Spirit of air, east wind, breathe through us your calm, your inspiration, your hope. Blow a fresh start through our stagnant fears, bringing new life with the spring. Spirit of fire, southern heat, kindle within us the inspiration to fight for justice and liberation. Give us the energy of the sun that it may fire our every deed. Spirit of water, the western sea, pour over us your healing balm. Flow through us your sustaining love. Spirit of earth, great northern lands, ground us in ourselves and our community. Give us your stability, the stability of hope and eternity. Holy One, be with us now in this place, in this moment, and in all the days to come. And now I invite you to join me, as is your tradition and practice, in praying as Jesus taught us to pray. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. Many of you have inquired about how you can support First Parish and our work here in Weston and around the region, especially when we're not together on Sundays. You can do so by mailing a check into the church office, or logging into your bank account online and setting up a one-time or periodic donation that way, or you can use our PayPal account. The easiest way to do that is to go to our website and click on the donate button at the top of the page, which will take you to our official PayPal landing page. Regardless of the option you choose, we thank you, the members and friends of this congregation, for continuing to support our church's voice, our presence, and our mission. What we do here matters and is worthy of our support. Thank you for joining us today. We invite you to check out our upcoming gatherings and programs, including our virtual fellowship hour that begins today just after the service at 11:30 a.m. on Zoom. This week, we are holding several virtual meetings and programs, including our weekly Knitters and Stitchers on Monday at noon, Wednesday morning meditation at 8:30 a.m., both on Zoom. In addition, the monthly gathering of the First Parish Book Group will be held this Thursday, April 15th at 9:30 a.m., and we'll be discussing Cast by Isabel Wilkerson. We also want you to save the date for an upcoming event on Wednesday, April 28th at 7 p.m. The Metro West Climate Solutions Group is hosting an online forum on the future of offshore wind power, which should be really excellent, so save the date for that. The links to all of our online meetings are listed in the e-newsletter that was sent out on Friday, and they're also listed on the calendar page of our website. We're continuing to discover many ways we can be supportive as a community from a distance. It's so wonderful to see so many people stepping up and reaching out during such a difficult time. It's what churches like ours do. Friends, go out into the world in peace. Have courage. Hold on to what is good. Return to no person evil for evil. Strengthen the faint-hearted. Support the weak. Help the suffering. And honor all beings. And may we all find our peace and our love and our life in the world. Amen. And may it be so.
Barz-Snell. Thank you so much for watching our service today. Did you guys just hear that, or was that just... Okay, seriously, who's laughing? Am I going crazy, or... What an going on? Stop laughing at me. Who's laughing at me? Jonah? Is that Max? Hey, you're really freaking me out. Stop. Actually, you know what? As long as I have a captive audience, might as well tell a joke. Okay. What is the funniest sport? Laugh, track, and field. Seriously?